Hi, good morning. This is the matter of Swayan Prakash against Kamath, case number 23-08759 DM. Present in the virtual courtroom, we have the defendant as well as both attorneys in this matter. And we're here on the defendant's motion to enforce the order in this case. I have read both the amended motion, and the response or the answer. So you don't need to repeat all of that. Mr. Young.
Yes, Your Honor. I think if you are familiar with the file in this case, there has been a history of, I think, attempts to try and minimize the father's developing a positive and appropriate relationship with the son. That has always been a concern. I think last summer when it came before Your Honor, there was the order that this child participate in counseling to address that very issue. And in fact, that was started. And after the therapist did meet with my client when he was exercising his summer parenting time in July of 2024. I think she got a perspective of what was going on in the dynamic between mom, dad, and the child. And I'm not sure that mom appreciated that or wanted to continue that. And so the counseling abruptly stopped in August. We are requesting that the order of this court that directed that this child be in counseling continue until there is some agreement that the issues the court was concerned with back last summer are appropriately addressed. We would say they have not been appropriately addressed. That's number one. Number two, the mother has changed the school district. Well, not changed. Has put the child in a school district now and has not informed my client of what school that is in. The orders in this case clearly say that the father is to have access to educational records and materials. He cannot do that when she's not informing him of what school the child is going into. So we are wanting information and as well as the medical and educational information. Your Honor, we are looking closely at this summer. We want to have there be a clear plan for giving my client his 4 weeks of parenting time with his son this summer. I'm not sure that is going to happen by an agreement of the parties because mom is still insistent that dad is a danger to the child and shouldn't have really unsupervised contact. And I do think that the court might note that after the court's order last June for July parenting time, that was appealed to the Court of Appeals. I don't really know the basis of that, but I believe the Court of Appeals determined that they were not going to accept the appeal. And so we're struggling. We're dealing with how we can help mom stop from being a person that is trying to minimize and prevent this child from having a good relationship with his son. I will mention that the weekly calls are problematic and that mom is present during the calls. I guess there's some sense in which when you're dealing with a younger child, that might be appropriate. But this child is, I think, old enough to be able to talk with his father without being interrupted by mom, without mom talking to him about other things during the calls, distracting him, really preventing him from having an engagement that the court contemplated when it entered those orders. I don't need to get into the orders. We've got all these orders about the mother encouraging a relationship and doing everything in her power to support that kind of relationship that needs to develop between a 5-year-old son and an absent father who cannot be in this country and so cannot live in this country. He would love to be living in Michigan, but he can't. So I just think mom's continued disparagement as well of dad evidences itself in what the child is reporting to him as well when they have been together. And so I don't know how we fix this, but it needs to be fixed. And I think in looking at the council's suggestion that there needs to be a more specific order directing her to do certain things, I don't know how specific you can be in saying, don't badmouth dad. Don't tell him he's a bad person. Don't tell him he's a danger. I mean, last summer during the exercise.
Again, we don't need to go through all this.
Okay,
I'm
I'll
very
leave it at
familiar
that.
with this file.
I will leave it at that.
Okay. Ms. Newsma.
I think there are a lot of things that are discussed about what dad thinks mom thinks. And despite asked her point blank, because I learned that dad had been recording the phone calls. And I said, what is the worst thing I'm going to hear? And she, I believe, said, me telling him that he needs to talk to his dad. That what I'd like to do is come out of today with specific times and days of the week for these phone calls. It's tricky with the time zones, but I think we can figure something out. And beyond that, we're not here on the summer parenting time issue. I've reached out to Mr. Young to try and come up with something that would globally resolve all of the issues. We did manage one consent order in this case. And I apologize. I should have started. I did email your clerk, but there are about 250 people in Grand Rapids who don't have power right now, and my client is one of them. She did dial in on her phone and is in the waiting room.
Okay. Ms. Vandola, would you let her in? There we go.
Thank you.
All right. The phone number that just joined us. This is Judge McNabb. I just want to confirm who you are.
Ramya Prakash.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So,
So
go ahead, Ms. Newsma.
ultimately, what we're here on is a motion about enforcing phone calls and counseling. The child is still in counseling. When mom first decided he needed to be in counseling back in February, she put him on the wait list with someone who specializes in children under 6, I believe ages 5 and under, and got off of that wait list in August. And that was when he started counseling. At the moment, she's in the process of setting something up with his current counselor as he ages out of this specialist in preschool age children into someone who deals with early elementary school and elementary school age children. That her understanding was that it was all on the portal. And so I think she was a little surprised to hear that it wasn't, because the practice was linked. As you know, with these large health systems, that's how it works. As far as enrolling Matya in school, he attends school in the school district based on mom's address. She's not trying to hide him or secreting him away in private school. He's enrolled in, I believe it's Grand Rapids Public Schools. Dad's listed on all the paperwork and has the contact information. So at this point,
Can you provide a copy of that to Mr. Young so that he can confirm that that's the case?
I could have done that months ago if he had called me instead of filing this motion.
Okay.
So really, I think that's part of the problem, that there's a habit of rushing to court instead of picking up the phone. I'm not the first attorney or the second on this file, but I think I've got a pretty good handle on what's going on with my client and a pretty good rapport. So beyond that, I think what we really need out of this is a specific date and time for these phone calls to take place. Say Tuesdays at a certain time, working within the time zones. It's going to be a little tricky, but I will indicate that the original order, dad was supposed to initiate these calls. And if mom didn't answer, then she was to reschedule. That she's been in contact with him. The attachments to my response were pretty clear, that she says, hey, we're traveling, so I'll be in the car with him this day. Do you want to do your call on another day instead?
So do you have a suggestion as to a date or dates and times?
I am terrible with time zones. We could, Mr. Young in his amended motion had asked between 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We could do that. With the child's bedtime, it would need to be kind of shortened, so it'd be 15, 20 minutes, so then he could move into his routine.
Mr. Kameth, you're represented, so put your hand down. Okay. All right.
So that is an option. I think the parties are both better aware of what times work during the summer. Certainly we could do it in the early mid-morning, like around 9 o'clock a.m. our time, which I think would be a better time then.
Okay, Mr. Young?
Yeah, I would just indicate that we are needing a time for these calls that is not in the middle of the night for him in India.
Why don't just give me a time? Tell me what would work.
I suggested 7 and 8, thinking that was either a morning or evening, but I see my client is indicating that is difficult. So I would just inquire of him what would work in terms of a time when the child is up, not in bed, and available to have that call.
All right, Mr. Kameth, I'm unmuting you. Would you answer that question, please?
Yes, I had suggested to Mr. Young Fridays and Saturday evenings, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the middle of the night for me in India. However, because I don't have work the following day, I can do that, and I can afford to wake up later. Currently, the times in the from the original 2019 order are Tuesday and Thursday nights at 4:30 p.m. I mean Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. However, which is about 3 a.m. for me. However, that's because I have work the following day and I need to wake up early. I prefer to
Okay,
do
so I'm
them
hearing you say
early.
Friday and Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, and that will also not disrupt the current schedule because we currently also have the calls at 4:30 p.m. It's just a shift of the days. That's
Okay, and
all.
then what about summer?
Summer is fine, that it just adjusts by an hour. That's not a problem.
Okay, so same time in the
Yeah.
summer, but
Yeah.
it'd be daylight saving time.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Nuzma?
I mean, my only problem with that is 4:30 on Friday and Saturday is a lot to kind of tie up an entire weekend, but I think my client can make it work.
I think given the distance and the
Exactly.
time problem, that's gonna make and especially since Mr. Kamath is willing to be up in the middle of the night, I think that's the best resolution of this
And
case.
I'll admit I'm a little confused by that based on the amended motion where we were told that he had severe health problems such that that didn't work, but I'm glad to hear that it's not an issue.
Okay, so 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday and Saturday. Okay. Moving on to the counseling. When was the last time this child was in counseling?
Dr. Swaram Prakash, if I could have my client answer that, because I think it's within the last week he's probably had an appointment.
Okay.
What?
She's not able to unmute. So
he is currently in
Your
counseling.
Honor.
Let me pull up my response.
oh, she just unmuted. So
Perfect.
ma'am.
Sorry, Your Honor. His most recent session was on Wednesday, January 29th, and his next session would be in about a week and a half.
Okay. And when was the first time he was with this counselor since August? When did
I
start,
want
in
to
other
say
words?
I think if I remember right, he started at the end of August. And he sees his counselor every week and a half or so because that's how their schedule works out.
Okay,
So
can
he
you
sees
provide
them at
proof?
home.
Can you provide proof of that to to your attorney, and then she can provide it to Mr. Young within
Sure.
7 days?
Sure.
All the
Sure.
appointments going back to August.
Can I
Yes,
inquire
ma'am.
as to whether that is the counselor, Erica Van Slolen, that he was seeing with Dad?
No.
A different counselor?
Yes.
Well, why are we going to different counselors?
All right. All
I'm
right.
not comfortable with Mr. Young interrogating my
Yeah, no,
client.
I know, and that's fine. I don't need to hear it. This child has been with this counselor for a number of months, and at this age, I'm not going to change it. I will indicate, though, that this counselor should be engaging also with not just mother, but also with father.
Absolutely. And that was the
So-
issue, Your Honor,
All
is
right.
that this initial
I
counselor.
understand. I understand the issue. So yes, that counselor needs to be engaging with both parents and not just hearing one side of it's the child's counselor, but they still need to be engaging with both parents given the issue in this case.
Yes. And as I mentioned earlier, the current counselor is working on transitioning him because of her age specialties, but it will be a kind of a uniform transfer where they move gradually to build the relationship with the replacement counselor
And
selected by the
again,
current counselor.
and again, it's just dad, he doesn't get to make the decision, but he needs to be involved and he needs
Yep.
to know what's going on.
And notified of this. And that's
That's what I'm that's
Yep.
that's exactly right.
Well, and that dad should participate, I think, as directed by the counselor.
well, he was trying to do
All
that.
right, let's not get into an argument here. I agree. I'm just saying he needs to be given the opportunity to participate. He can't if he doesn't know what's going on. And you
Exactly.
need to be exchanging this information between the two of you so that we don't end up here.
Can I inquire as to whether any portal information has changed so that he can access what's going on with the counseling?
I believe he's already on the portal through the main, I assume it's Spectrum because you all are Grand Rapids, or nothing has changed, says my client.
Okay, he has gone on the portal and he's seen no activity, so I'm just wanting to make sure that's an issue that's covered as well.
And we have a number of health systems here. So again, I just want all that information provided to Mr. Young within 7 days.
Not a problem.
Okay. And as far as the video conferencing and telephone contact, that needs to be in a place and at a time. Well, it's at 4:30, but that needs to be with the child alone without
Mom
mom.
will
If she
get it
has to
set
leave
up
the
and get him
child in the
going.
car and step outside the car, that's fine if they're in the car. Okay.
Yeah, I think she'll need to get it set up for him because he's still young enough. But then
I understand that. That's no problem. But once it's set up, she needs to step away
all right,
and have a hearing.
while we're doing this, can we include that nobody records these conversations?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
And just to make sure that this order would include his ability to access all school portals, that we're going to be given the name of the school and any other educational extracurricular activities he's involved with, any change in pediatricians or doctor providers. We just need that information. I don't think it's in, he should be hunting around Grand Rapids trying to find a doctor that his child is going to. And so
I'm just wondering, would our family wizard be helpful to the parties?
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay. Because on that, you can put all that information. You don't have to interact with the other parent, but it's all there. And I've heard from other parents that it's actually a helpful organizational tool.
I have a good friend who is married to his wife and says that he wants to start using it just so they can keep everything
Yeah,
organized.
the calendar is very good. So,
And it'll also handle the video calls.
all of that.
Perfect.
And I'll just indicate that the parties are to share the expense.
Yeah,
And it's not very much.
no, it's I think
Yeah, and I
140 maybe a year.
when whoever initiates that, there is a fee that's paid for both. And I would just say that expense will be split between the parties equally.
Yes. Yes.
And when you set it up, you pay individually. If Brad Benedetto will talk your ear off if he ever gets a hold of you at a conference and will tell you all the wonderful ways it works.
Your Honor,
Good. I'll just make it clear that they're to split the fee.
Perfect.
Your Honor, in terms of this summer coming up, my client needs a couple of months to get that prepared. I know Ms. Nursia had indicated that she was going to try to propose a schedule. Can we get a sort of a default date in the event that we're not able to come to an agreement? And I'm not sure. I just don't want there to be a problem at the last
I would say
minute.
March 1st.
Okay. And is it my understanding, Your Honor, that you would give my client a similar length of parenting time with his son that he had last year and he had the year before?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're looking to do the 4 weeks. We'll figure it out. If we can't, one of us will file a motion, but I think we can probably figure it out.
Very good.
All right.
All right. I'm not wildly familiar with Kent County. Should I expect an order from Mr. Young or an order from the court?
It's Mr. Young's motion.
I will prepare an order and
All right.
submit it to you. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Judge, for your time.